Okay, so we've set up our image planes, right? I'm using the front camera right here, and I'm using the side camera. It's the same image plane, right? So I'm taking advantage of my grid by moving the center of my image at this level right here. However, if I wanted to take advantage of this intersection right here, right? What I can do is I can move my image plane up so I can take advantage of that intersection of my grid right here to do a really cool rotation right here. Do you guys see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unreference my image planes, and I'm going to select both of the image planes. Okay, so I'm going to one camera, shift, select the other one in the other camera, and I'm going to hit W to move. I'm going to move these guys right here so that the axis for this image plane right here is right where the grid starts. And then I'm going to reference my image planes again so I cannot grab them. And I'm going to start with the flange. Now, the flange, if you notice, has 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's 8 holes. So I'm going to start with the holes. All right? And we know that what makes a perfect circle, it's an 8-sided shaft, right? So if I go to polygons and I go to my cylinders, right, I have a cylinder right here. I'm going to rotate it, hit the letter R, rotate it towards the camera. All you got to do is rotate it ever so slightly and you will find the degree. Right here is rotate X. So I'm going to type in 90 so it faces the camera. Now, I've created this cylinder right here. I don't need all the subdivisions. As you can see, all I have to do is go to the history for this cylinder right here, polycylinder 1, and under subdivisions axis, I'm going to type in 8. And as you can see, I have a simple cylinder with 8 sides, right? Now, I'm going to move this right up here to where this line is, right here. I'm going to hit the X-ray button, which is right here in this specific camera's icons. And again, I can move it and follow that curvature right here. And as soon as I get up here, I'm going to freeze my transformations. I'm going to go to my freeze transformation. I should have that right here in my custom. So now no matter where I move this cylinder, right, I can go back here, type in 0, and it will place it in the right place. Now, I'm going to move this guy right here, and I'm going to scale it down, hit the letter R, and I'm not worried about the side view yet. And I'm going to hit 3 to see if this is at the right scale. Now I can make this a little bit bigger right here. I am looking at that outer edge, right? And there. So I'm going to hit 1 to go back to hard edge, and immediately for my translate, I'm going to type in 0. So I go back to this point right here, and I want to leave the scale the way it is, and now I'm going to freeze my transformations again. That way my scale is set up the way it is. Now, let's go to a side view, and I'm going to move my cylinder so that it is the same size as my flange. Now, to do that, I'm going to move vertices. I could use the scale, but it's just a waste of time. Now, I know that I'm only going to work on the front half, and then I'm going to flip this on the negative X to create the back. So I'm not too worried about this matching my drawing. All I want is the front to match the front of my drawing. And immediately I'm going to go to the front, and I'm going to select these faces, and I'm going to delete them. Now, as you can see right here, if I select these guys, hit F, here's my circle. If I hit 3, you will notice that an 8-sided cylinder becomes a perfect circle. So I'm going to go to 1. And now we're going to start exploring the flange itself. I'm going to create a cylinder that it's going to have a series of wedges where I'm going to attach this little cylinder right here, our hole, right? So I'm going to need a cylinder that has 1, 2, 3, 4, so that will be 8 divisions. So again, we're going to go to polygons. I'm going to create a cylinder right here. Immediately, I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to hit E, slightly rotate it to see what rotation angle I'm using. And in this case is rotate X. I'm going to type in 90, like this. I'm going to hit R for scale so that I match the flange on the drawing. I'm going to hit 3. And again, we want the dark edge on the outer edge right here, like this. So I'm going to hit 1 again. Now, notice that I have 20 subdivisions. So because I'm going to want 4 on this side and 4 on this side, I'm going to type in 8. And notice that each one of my circles will fit perfectly in one of these wedges, right? Now, because I know that these wedges right here are going to have a middle point, I'm going to double my subdivision, 16. That way I get a free center for those little holes at the same time that I'm creating this. Now, if I go to my 3/4 view and hit F, I'm not going to need anything else right here. I'm not going to need the back, and I'm not going to need the top. Why am I deleting the sides and the back? Because I'm going to extrude everything else once I figured out how to take care of this front view right here. Now, I'm going to select these faces. I'm going to go to my side view, and I want to move these right in front of my hole, my tiny little hole right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my image plane, and I'm going to move the pivot point to any of my vertices by going D and holding the V key and middle mouse dragging it to this vertex right here, and then hitting D again to re-engage the pivot point. Now, the reason why I want to do this is so that when I move my front faces for this big disc right here, that if I hold, let me hit W again, select the object, W, put my center pivot. So when I move this right here, I can hold V for snap to points, and then I can middle drag to one of these vertices for the little hole cylinder that we have here. So now I know that this face right here is snap to the front. Let me bring my wireframe unshaded of this little cylinder right here. Now you will notice that these faces are facing in the wrong direction. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this object, and I'm going to go to mesh display, and what we want to do is we want to reverse the normals, and there you have it. Same thing for this cylinder right here, right? We want we're going to be able to see the inside, right? We want to see the inside of the cylinder. So again, I'm going to go to reverse, which is found under mesh display, reverse, and all I'm doing is reversing the normals. Now, here's our object. Let me bring back the image plane. And as you can see, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this one wedge right here. This wedge and this wedge. I'm going to make all the connections. I'm going to do all the beveling. I'm going to cut a hole. I'm going to attach it to the little hole right here, right? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to do a duplicate special so that I can duplicate it in this direction, which will be a rotate Z. So I don't need to work on these guys right here, as you can see. I can select these guys, right? And all I need is this wedge. So with this wedge selected, what we need to do next is we need to cut a hole right here. Let me go to object mode. Here's this guy right here. And here's our little circle. So we need to cut a hole in here so we can attach this, so we can create one of the wedges and then duplicate special the rest of the wedges. So I'm going to go right mouse button and select my edges, and I'm going to insert an edge loop like so. But notice that because it doesn't know how this continues, I won't be able to use this tool efficiently. So I'm going to go and undo until right before I deleted all my wedges. so I can have a full plane right here. And now if I go edges and I insert an edge loop by holding shift right mouse button, notice that I will get the edge loop so it goes all the way around. So for some reason this is not working. Let me reset. Select the object. I'm gonna delete my history, freeze the transformation, insert edge loop. Okay, it's not working. So I'm going to see what's wrong with this. Okay, go to vertex, and I'm noticing that there are no vertices in the middle. So for some reason, my insert edge loop is not working. Now, this is not a problem. The way that you fix this is that you select the outer edge and you give yourself a temporary edge. So I'm going to extrude that edge so it goes towards the back. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete my faces. If I select this outer edge right here and I do an extrusion by going to shift right mouse button extrude, notice that in the extrude tool, I can select this button right here and I will do the extrusion from the center, from the middle point of all my selections. So if I do this right here and I scale these guys down, they will go towards the middle. So I'm going to take advantage of this operation right here and I'm going to create extrusions like so that they support. Let me hide my image planes so that they support where the hole is going to be. I'm going to hit G again to repeat extrusion, and I'm going to put my pivot point to the middle. And again, I'm going to scale this. The best way to use the scale tool on an extrusion is scale it towards the center. You will notice that nothing can happen, but when you do that, it turns on the center pivot for the scale. Before we didn't have it. We could have only scaled on the X or the Z. Sorry, on the X or the Y. But by moving the X, which doesn't do anything, it brings the general scale tool in the middle. And now I can do this. I can extrude this right here. And I'm going to hit G to repeat last operation one more time. I'm going to bring this in the center. Again, notice that there is no center scale for this extrusion. However, if I extrude on the Z, I can bring it in. So I'm going to move this guy right here. And I'm going to do one more time. Hit G. Move your center pivot. Drag the Z scale so you can bring in the general scale. And then there it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave all the other wedges. And as soon as I cut the hole and I figured out how all of this is going to go, then we will delete the edges and then do a duplicate special. So I'm going to go to this wedge right here. And I know that this right here, if this edge goes to this edge right here, I will have a quad. It'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then I'm going to need another edge right here. Another edge in the middle, one here, and this one can go right here. So let's start. I'm going to select this wedge right here. I'm going to select this vertex. I'm going to move him up. Right here. Now, I'm going to go to my object right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to scale it so that it goes right here. Now, the way this is going to work is that this edge will be connected to this edge right here on my little hole. This edge will be connected right here. So I will have a quad that will go from here to here, to here, to here, back to this. So what we want to do is select this edge right here, and I'm going to scale it so it goes in the middle. And this one right here will go right here. And obviously what I need to do is I need to create another extrusion so that I can create the edge that goes right here. So while these edges are selected, I'm going to go shift right mouse button, extrude edge. Again, move your pivot point so that it's in the center of all your extrusions, right? And we're going to scale this by dragging the Z, which is going to do nothing, but bringing that center scale tool, and then I'm going to drag this right there. And if I look at my reference images, notice that we have a lip right below where these holes are going to be. So I'm going to leave this edge right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the lip. I'm going to hit G, bring my extrusion tool back in the middle, and this time I'm going to pull it forward like this. I'm going to go to my side view, and I'm going to go look at this bevel right here, and I'm going to bring it to the front of the bevel right here. And then using R for scale, I'm going to scale this so that it matches the angle of my bevel right here. Now it's time to cut that hole. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this front view, and I'm going to change the color of my background so I can see this better. Now I'm not worried about the rest of my flange right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this vertex. With the move tool, I'm going to snap it to the top of that circle right here. This one is fine right here. Now I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm going to select my multi-cut tool right here, and I'm going to cut from this vertex to right here to right here, and I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to snap that to that vertex right there. I'm not worried about the sides, because what I'm going to do next, as soon as I go to the very top right here, I'm going to hit enter. What I'm going to do next with the Q, I'm going to select these faces, and I'm going to delete them. So now I have a hole where I can then connect to this little shaft right here. Now what I want to do is I want to use my move tool and my V to snap to point. And what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to move these two guys right here up, and I'm going to make sure by holding the V tool so that they snap to this vertex right here. So what I'm doing, I'm moving this, and then I'm holding V and middle mouse button, and I'm dragging it so that it snaps in a vertical way to this corner right here. I can do that to all my vertices, so I know that all the vertices are snapped vertically to one of the vertices from that little tube. And now I'm going to do it on the X direction. So I'm going to move it, V, middle mouse, drag it. The reason why you're doing this on a front view is because if you do it on a 3/4 view, you may be off. But when you're doing it on this view right here, you're limited on a 2-dimensional movement. You can only go up and down, left and right. You're not going to go towards the back. So now, as you can see right here, notice that I've created a hole, and I can attach it right now to these tubes right here. These are going to be the holes that we're going to use for our flange right here. I'm not worried about the fact that this hole should be at 22.5 degrees. I'm just going to do one wedge, and then I'm going to move the wedges and then move the entire flange so that it mimics my image plane. So again, I'm not worried about the rest of the geometry. All I want to worry about is this little wedge right here. Okay, so let's talk about combining things. I'm going to hit Q, and I'm going to select this object, which has a lot of history, and I'm going to shift select the other object. And what I'm going to do on my custom shelf. I'm going to delete the history and freeze this transformation. So now that these two guys are clean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine them. I'm going to go to my polygons and I'm going to go to my combine tool right here, or I can go to mesh, combine. When I do so, notice that both of the objects turn green. That means that they're both combined. However, if I open my 3/4 view with my outliner, notice that we have a lot of history from the combination. That history can be a problem. So again, I'm going to delete my history and boom, they're gone. So I'm not going to worry about naming things until the very end. Now, let's talk about our bevels. By looking at our reference, I'm noticing that our geometry, if I hit 3, it's very, very smooth. If I hide the wireframe, this looks a little bit on the smooth side. Plus, we want some bevels right here, and we want some bevels on the edges of our flange. So if I go to 1, I know that I'm going to put a bevel right here. I'm going to put a bevel on this corner, and I'm probably going to fence, not bevel, but fence these edges right here and the ones right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of this bevel first, and then I'm going to take care of this bevel right here. Again, we're not worried about the opposite side because we're going to flip this flange and then combine it into one piece. Now, let's say, for example, I realize that, bless you. Let's say, for example, I realize that I wish I would have had this piece right here a little bit further in with a little gap, so when I create my bevel, I don't have to run into issues. What I mean by that is, like, if I select my edge right now by double clicking right here, and I'm noticing something very interesting, is that my vertices are not welded together. So I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to select this edge in the back, and I'm going to convert the selection into faces. Shift, right mouse button, and go to I'm going to go to select, convert selection to faces, and notice because I have not welded my vertices that these two guys are not attached. So again, what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to weld my edges by welding the vertices, and then I'm going to detach this lip right here. I'm going to scale this down, extrude that edge, and then reattach it. So again, let's do this real quick. I'm going to go to my vertices right here, and if I want to see what my border edges look like, I'm going to go right mouse button, object mode, and I'm going to bring my border edges, and I'm going to make my border edges bigger so I can see where things are cut up. So there you have it. These are one piece, but they're not welded together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right mouse button, vertex. I'm going to select these two vertices, and I'm going to go shift right mouse button, merge vertices, merge to center. Or if I select these two, I can go to edit mesh, merge to center. Now, because I've done that, I've merged these two guys right here and these two vertices. Now this border edge has disappeared. That's because there's not a border edge anymore. This edge has been welded together. Now, the coolest trick is the repeat last operation, which is the letter G. So since the last operation was merge vertices to center, I'm just going to select these two guys, hit G, then these two guys, G, these two guys, G, G, and I'm going to go around G, G, and there you have it. Now we have a piece that has been attached, has been combined, and then we've welded the edges. So if I hit 3, notice that we get this very soft looking hole, and that's not what we want. If we look at the reference images, if I go to my front view and I turn on my image planes, you're going to notice that we need a hard edge. The other thing that I've noticed is that this object right now, it's bigger than what we want. So we're going to talk about how to scale things, but constraining them in one direction. So again, when it comes to this piece right here, I've noticed that this is too close to my hole. So if I was to select this edge right here by double clicking it, and I applied a bevel by going to this icon right here, or going to edit mesh bevel, and I always do that, I always reset my tools. If I hit bevel, I may run into a problem with a little gap right there. So if I type in something like 0.01, maybe I need to go smaller, 0.01. Whoops, I'm in the wrong place. I have to go to my fractions. So if I make my fraction smaller, notice that the bevel works fine, but because I had this corner right here too close to it, what's going to happen is I'm going to deform the circumference of this lip right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo right to the beginning, and now it's time to select this lip right here. So I'm going to double click on the edge, and then I'm going to go to select, convert selection to faces. And now that I have these faces right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them from this mesh. So I'm going to go to this tool right here, which is the extract. And as soon as I click on extract, it's going to create two meshes. If I go to object mode, this is one piece now, and this is another piece. So what I can do, since I know that my center pivot, it's on this Y and X center, is that I'm going to scale this. Now, if I was to hit scale like this, and I scaled it from the center, notice that I'm going to achieve what I want. I want to make it smaller, however, it's going to push it towards the back. So what I want to do is I want to scale it, but I want to make sure that it does not scale on the Z. So there's two ways that we can do this. We can hold Control on the axis that we don't want to scale. So in this case, it would be Z. And when I do that, notice that I'm scaling it in X and Y, but not on Z. Or what we can do is we can move our scale by clicking on one of the planes. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Z plane, which lies right between next to the Y and the X. And it does the same thing. As you can see, I can control my scaling the way I want it. Now I'm going to move my lip right here. Once you do a transformation, let's say a scale, a rotation, or a movement, you don't have to go back to the handles. You can use the middle mouse button, and then you can drag and you will recreate that movement. Now let's say that my lip is going to go right here. All right, I just want to give myself a little bit of space right here, like so. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge by double clicking on it, and I'm going to extrude it, extrude edge. But instead of using this tool from the center, since I have already created an extrusion, all I have to do is hit R, and I'm going to extrude that edge. So I'm going to extrude this so it goes right on top of the border for that extra piece that we created. I can zoom in into a subatomic level, and then what I can do is I can middle mouse drag, and I'm pretty much executing the same movement that I did. In this case it was scale, and there you have it. So now I can select these two objects, this object right here and this object right here, holding shift, and I can combine them. I can turn on the border edges so you can see where the border edges are. Let me make the width a little bit bigger. And because I scaled this right on top of each other, if I was to select my vertices like this, and I went to merge, notice that we get this gigantic merging. So we're going to go to the distance threshold and we're going to type in 0.001. And what that's doing is like decreasing the distance, the threshold distance. I'm saying don't look all the way to a distance of 1. Look at a distance of 0.001. So now I have these two objects merged together, and now I can double click on this edge right here. And when I add a bevel, I'm not going to have any issues with this area right here. I may have some issues right on the top, right here. So again, I'm not worried about every other wedge except for this wedge right here. So I'm going to think about how I'm going to do this. And what I can do, I can select these two edges right here, delete them, use the multi-cut tool, and I can go from here to here to here for now. And now what I'm going to do is, let me delete this edge right here so they don't get on the way. I'm not worried about these edges because I will reconnect them again. So let's select this edge right here. If I double click, notice that it went all the way around. And now I can add a bevel. So I'm going to generate a bevel. Let me lower the fraction, something like a 0.1. I'm going to hit 3 just to see what it looks like. Obviously, that bevel needs reinforcements. So once I get this bevel right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce this edge right here and this edge right here. So for now, this is what I want. All right. Again, I'm not worried about this guy right here because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select these edges and I'm going to create what's called an offset edge loop tool. The offset edge loop tool, when you click on one of the edges, notice that it's creating an offset around your edge. So I can do this right here and it will create an offset all the way around. And I can go in this one right here and do the same thing. So now, if I go to object mode and hit 3, notice that we get a very, very sharp edge. I beveled the edge so I could get a 45-degree edge, and then I reinforce those two edges like so. If I go to object mode, there you have it. Now, on the top and on the bottom, they're not too pretty, as you guys can see, right? And they're not the same distance. If I was to select, for example, this edge right here, notice that they're not the nicest spacing in the world. That is because right here, from here to here, I had a lot of space, but from here to here, I don't have that much space. So another thing that we can do is we can do this manually. I can double click on this edge and then double click on the other one that I created, or I can go and undo and go back to right to the beginning before I inserted those offsets. And what we can do is we can manually insert these edge loops. I can select this edge, shift, right mouse button, insert edge loop instead of the offset. And I'm going to eyeball this one. I'm going to put this guy right here, like so. I'm going to eyeball it. So it's the same distance right here and the same distance right here. Now, the one on the outside is going to be the problematic part right here. So if I was to click on it, notice that it doesn't know what to do. Maya is confused, and that is because I don't have quads. If I was to do this right here, it's only going to go to a certain distance. Then after that, it's going to be very, very confused. Like, where should I go? I don't know what the loop is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my front view. I'm going to zoom in right here. And I'm manually going to add one right here. And on the opposite side, one right here. Notice that it didn't go all the way around. So I'm going to use my multi-cut tool to take care of this. So select the multi-cut tool. I'm going to click on this vertex right here. I'm going to put one where I believe the spacing should be, so like right here. and then I'm going to connect it to this one right here. And we're going to do the same thing for the top. We're going to go to the top. And again, I'm going to hit enter, hit Y for the last tool. And I'm going to click right here. And I'm going to eyeball the same distance, let's say somewhere right here. And then when I connect it to the opposite side, notice that all we have to do is fix this guy right here and this guy right here. So I'm going to W, F to find them, and if I move them up and then scale them in, this distance is the same as the top. And for these guys right here, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to bring this guy right here so that the distance from here to here is the same as the other ones. So I'm going to do that on both sides at the same time. And again, zoom in, drag select, and I'm going to hit W and then F. So I'm going to move them down. And this one is actually borderline perfect. So now when I hit 3, let me go to a 3/4 view. Notice that my edges manually look better than if I use the offset edge tool. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to hit 3, and there you have it. A perfect bevel with a perfect fencing. Now, for this part right here, what we're going to do is these guys right here we're going to delete. So I don't care about what's going on over here. So what I want to do, I want to reinforce this edge right here, and I want to reinforce this edge right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this manually by deleting everything that I have right here. I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to double click on this edge, and I'm going to go shift right mouse button, delete edge. So what I want to do is I want to extrude an edge that goes all the way around here. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to select this edge right here, and I'm going to go to shift right mouse button, insert edge loop tool, and notice that Maya is confused. Maya doesn't know what to do. So that's not going to work. I'm going to hit Q, and again I'm going to take care of this bevel right here so that it matches this bevel right here, and then we'll take care of this piece right here. So I'm going to select this edge, double click on this edge, and then go to select, convert selection to faces, hit delete, and I'm going to select these 2 vertices. I'm going to look at them, hit F to find them, zoom out. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to first bevel the top, so we take care of that bevel once and for all, and then we are going to delete everything except for this wedge, and I'm going to show you a trick on how to use the extrusion tool with a custom center pivot. And the center pivot is going to be the center pivot of this flange right here. So we need the entire flange because I want to make sure that this bevel right here on the very, very top, if I hit 3, I want to make sure that this bevel is as good as the bevel for the holes. So again, and I also need to fix this right here because this is not a quad. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges. So we want to move this guy so he goes over here. Now let's do the bevel first. I'm going to double click so the entire edge loop is selected, and I'm going to go to bevel. Obviously this bevel is humongous, so I'm going to shrink this to imitate the bevel of the holes. Now to see that, sometimes it's better to go to like a top view and go to wireframe, which is 4. And as you can see, let me hide the bevel edges. As you can see right here, if I zoom in, this is the bevel of the little holes. So I'm going to move my fraction so I can imitate that. All right, I may have to type it by hand. So I want to click here, 0.05. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm almost there. I'm almost there. So it's probably something like 0.052. No, it's a little bit less, so 0.051. No, so let's try 0.045. I'm gonna go over here. There it is. It's probably 0.0452. All right, now we're getting into splitting hairs and OCD, so I'm not gonna worry about that. So let's look at that bevel. So let me go to perspective. Here's my bevel. And again, we wanna insert edge loops so we can reinforce this edge right here and this edge right here. So I'm gonna use my insert edge loop tools, but I'm gonna use my top view to add at least the edge. Let me double click on this edge for the top, and then visually here I can do the front. So let's do that. I double clicked here. I'm gonna go shift, right mouse button, insert edge loop tool, and I'm gonna put an edge loop right here. And now I can go to my 3/4 view and go, okay, so that's the distance that I need to work on. So I'm gonna move my camera. I'm gonna put one right here, right? One right here. Let me go to the front. Let me zoom in. I'm gonna put one right here and one right here. Now, if you are not too happy with this, or let's say that the distance, I'm gonna select those things, those vertices. Let's say, for example, the edge loop right here, it's too close to the edge and you wanna move this. What we can do, we can use a tool. I'm gonna double click on that edge loop. I'm gonna go shift, right mouse button, and I'm gonna select the slide edge tool. So the way that this works is that you use your middle mouse button and you drag. Okay. Now you can do this once and you will notice that you're getting a snapping. So this may not work right here. Because it wants to snap right at the edge right there. But if you hit the plus sign and you increase it, right, by going plus, what tends to happen is that you are able to make your brush bigger. I don't know if this tool has a brush, but for some reason, when I hit the plus sign, I'm able to do smoother movements. Okay, so now these two fencings look really good. I'm gonna go to object mode and I'm gonna type in 3. And notice that we're getting the same bevel that we got for the circles. So I'm satisfied with this bevel. Now it's time to take care of these connections right here. So I'm gonna hit 4. And I know that if I go from this edge right here, if I go from this vertex to this one right here, I will get a quad. And I don't have to put things going up in this direction, because remember, we want these edges when we hit 3 to generate a perfect circle. So let's try fixing this. I'm gonna go to 1. And if I go from here to here, that would also be a quad. All right, I'm just trying to figure it out what is the best way. So let me double click on this edge so it goes all the way around. And I'm going to hit R for scale. Okay. And I'm going to scale this up. And now I'm noticing that I can do something interesting. If I was to select these edges, let me lower my size of my gizmo. If I select these two edges and delete them, I can do this. I can go from this corner right here, and I can go to that vertex right there. I can do the same thing here. I can go from here to here, right? Let me hit 3, object mode, Q for select, hit 3. And I'm actually getting a really good spreading right here. Again, I'm not worried about these faces right here. We're gonna delete those guys right now. Hit 1. And we are gonna make our object lighter also, because we're gonna get rid of this edge loop right here. Double click, right mouse button, shift, delete edge, and this is what we're aiming for right here. Now, This is a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a quad. So when I hit 3, notice that we get quads everywhere. Perfect. So it's time to duplicate this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these faces right here and delete them. All I want is this wedge right here. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, we got rid of our center pivot, so how can we continue this extrusion? Well, this is really easy. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to fix these two guys right here. Right? I'm going to select this. Right? And what I want to do is I want to snap it so that it connects with this guy right here. So I can use the move tool, move it away, hold V, middle mouse button, and snap it here. Select these two guys. Notice that I have two vertices, but then I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, Merge to Center, and now I have one. So what we want to do is we want to extrude a little lip right here, but if I hit E for extrusion, right? Extrude edge. Notice that this does not guarantee us to go back to the center. If I keep dragging this, notice that it doesn't go to the center. So what we need to do is once we extrude, I'm going to go to my front view, hit F, and I'm going to hit R for scale, and I'm going to snap my pivot point right here. So I'm going to hit D, hold X key, and then drag this up and then down. And now if I hit D again, notice that now my pivot point is in the center where the pivot point for the flange was. So what happens if I scale this? It meets in the center, which is what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to extrude once, like so. So we have quads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to generate the lip. So let me bring my image plane. I know if I hit G, I'm going to go forward just to get the same thickness. And I'm not worried that my hole is lower than in my image plane. I'm going to correct that next. So I didn't set the pivot point right here because I just went forward. Now if I hit G to repeat extrusion, now I have to make sure that my pivot point is riding on the grid line. So I'm going to hit R for scale, D to disengage my pivot point. I'm going to drag it while holding the X key, and it will snap right there. Hit D to re-engage it, and now look how we get our extrusion to go and meet right here. Well, I'm going to stop right here because this is where our hole is going to be. So I'm going to stop right here, and now I'm going to hit G for extrusion again, and this time we're going to go back. So this is going to be our hole. This is the shaft right here. Let me move this here, and I'm going to hold V for snap to points, and I'm going to snap it to one of the points of this guy right here. I can do that for the top. Select these vertices, move them, hold V, middle mouse, and there it is. Now, what if I wanted to create this angle? What if I wanted these guys to go down so that they mimic the angle? Well, if I do it like this, notice that it's not going to work. So we have to do that while holding the scale, R. But again, we need to snap that center pivot down here. So I'm going to hit D, move in the Y direction while holding the X, so you snap to the grid, hit D again, and now look at this. I can go to the front, middle mouse drag, and notice that our bevel is going to imitate the rest of the edges, and it's going to go towards the center. So middle mouse drag this. I want this edge to mimic this edge, and there you have it. This is how you create one of the pieces. Now if I hit 3, this is super smooth. We get a little bit of fencing right here, but not what we want. So let's create some manual fencing. Edges, Okay, I kind of like the fencing that I'm getting with this right here, so I'm gonna try to imitate it. So shift right mouse button, and I'm gonna go to insert edge loop. I'm gonna put an edge loop right here, the same distance as these guys right here, and I'm gonna put one right here. Again, this is just manual. I'm gonna put one right here and one right here, and I'm gonna hit Q for selection tool. I'm gonna select this guy, object mode, hit 3, and see what a really nice fencing we get right here. We're gonna fix where the scale is, where the hole is. As you can see right here, if I get out of X-ray mode, our bevel is right here. So we want it to be higher, and our hole could go a little bit higher. So the hole is easy. You select all the vertices that have to do with the hole, like so. And what you want to do is you want to move them up right here. Now for this bevel right here, what we're going to do is we're going to use our scale. All right, I'm going to select all the vertices that are involved with this, which would be all of these guys right here, all of these guys right here. And again, I'm going to scale this. And what do we do with our scale? We have to snap it again to that origin point right here. Hit D to re-engage it. And now we have to use that trick of only scaling on the Y and the X, not on the Z. Because if we scale it on every direction, we're going to get this issue right here. So what I want to do is I want to scale this. And I've decided that I want to add these two guys right here. So when I do that, notice that our pivot point gets all messed up. Again, D. Hold the X key, snap it to the grid, hit D again. And now we're going to constrain our scale only on Y and X by clicking on this icon right here. All right, and I've changed my mind again. I want to move everything except for the bottom. When I deselect these pieces, our pivot point gets centered to everything that we have selected. So hit D, hold X, and we're going to drag this guy down, hit D again, and we're going to click on this plane right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it first, like this, and then I'm going to go to my front view, and with the middle mouse button, I'm going to do this. If you increase the size of your tool and you middle mouse drag it, you're going to get a smoother movement. So the purpose is to make sure that the distance from here to here is the same from here to here. And I think I got it right there. Okay, so I'm going to test this out. I have this. I'm really happy. I'm going to put the same bevel that I have right here for both the hole and the top of my flange. I'm going to put it where the hole is. So first, I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to go right here. And I'm going to go edge. Double click on this edge right here. And I'm going to go to bevel. The bevel is humongous, so I'm going to bring it down ever so slightly like this. Right there. And I'm going to go to my top view. And I'm going to find it. I'm going to hit F. Find that bevel. Let's do this. Yeah, there's the bevel right there. So I want this bevel to be the same size as this right here. So it looks like it's going to be a 0.045. There you go. And again, we're going to go back here and we're going to add our insert edge loops. So I'm going to hit Q, Shift, right mouse button, whoops, object mode, right mouse button edges, Shift, right mouse button, insert edge loop. I'm going to go to my front view. And by looking at this right here, I think I'm going to get this guy right here. It's a little bit too much. So I'm going to go undo. And I'm going to click so it goes right here. I'm going to put one Okay, look at this, make sure that it's proportional. One goes right here, one goes right here, and I'm gonna put one right there. Always making sure that the distance from here to here and here to here is the same, consistent. All right, so let's see what this looks like. Object mode, hit 3, and there you have it. You have consistent edge loops. We have fencing and all that stuff. I'm gonna take a look at my object right here, and we are in 3. Now this is not correct right here because I don't have anything to match it. So now this is time to create what we call a duplicate special. So for a duplicate special, what we're gonna do is first we're gonna freeze our transformation. Let me go to my customs, delete the history, so we got rid of all that history. Froze the transformation. I'm gonna center the pivot, but I'm gonna change my pivot so that it goes back to this grid right here. So hit D, hold X and drag it down, hit D to engage it, and I'm gonna go to 1. We are gonna go to edit, duplicate special, and we are gonna reset it. So how does duplicate special work? As you can see, our rotation pivot point is gonna be on the Z, not on the Y, not on the X, but on the Z. The Z is facing the camera. Now, the way that you read these numbers right here, translate, rotate, or scale, and we're going to be dealing with rotate, is that the first column is X, Y, and then Z. So we are going to rotate on the Z, but I don't know my degrees. I mean, I do, but I'm going to test them out. So I'm going to type in 90 degrees, and we want 1 copy. I'm going to hit apply. And as you can see, we want half of this. So I'm going to go to 45 degrees, and I'm going to hit apply. Make sure you select the object, hit apply. And as you can see, we get a really good duplicate special. Now we know that our degrees is going to be 45, but how many pieces do we need? Not 1. So as you guys saw right here, we're going to have 1 slice right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because we already have 1, we're going to type in 7, and at 45 degrees is going to duplicate 7 pieces. I select the object, hit apply, and there you have it. That's how we use the duplicate special. Now it's just a matter of combining all the pieces by selecting everything right here and going to polygons combine. Now if I turn on my border edges, you will notice that we have these borders right here, right? Because even though we have 1 piece, we have not welded the vertices. Now, this is a little bit tricky, but once you know how to control the merge vertices tool and the threshold, you should have no problem combining this. All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select these vertices right here. And I wanna select these guys because this is the tightest place that I have vertices. So let me select these guys, and let me select these guys right here. I'm gonna go to edit mesh, merge. I'm gonna go to my options, and I'm gonna go to reset, and the reset threshold is 0.01. I'm gonna give it a try, and notice that my threshold was too big, and that's why it took those groups right here and combined them into single pieces. It didn't do these two because the threshold was small in this case. All you have to do is go to polymerge, which was the last operation you did in your history, and instead of 0.01, type in 0.001, and look what happened. We were able to merge these vertices, but they did not collapse. So 0.001, it's a good threshold. I'm going to apply it here, and I can hit apply, nothing's going to happen. So remember, the last operation was merge vertices with a threshold of 0.001. So I'm going to select this group right here, like so, and if I hit G, boom, it welded everything together. And now I can select this group right here, and again hit G. I missed that guy right there, hit G. I can select these guys. I can move the camera at this angle, select all of these right here, hit G. That will take care of this. And I can select these. I'm not selecting the ones by the circles because I'm afraid that the bevels and the fencing near the circles may be small, too small, and I may merge those by mistake. I'm going to hit G. This guy was forgotten. G, G, and there you have it. Using the border edges, you can quickly see what's open. And there you have it. We've created a flange. I'm going to hit 3 and look at the holes that we have. They're very simple holes, right? There were 8 edges cylinders. And I created this big cylinder right here with the most minimal amount of divisions. Think of them as pies. And then what I did is that I added my bevels. I made sure that all the bevels were the same size, right? And think of this being made by a machine. I assume the machine would bevel everything equally. And if I hit 3, notice that I have really good beveling. Some bevels are not sharper than other ones. And that's how we were able to do a quick flange. Now, if I go to my side view, notice that this flange right here, this part right here, the bevel could be a little bit bigger. This is a very, very easy fix. And I'm going to go to the X-ray mode right here. And I've noticed that the actual flange is bigger than my design. So what we can do for that is we can scale that down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select these edges. Okay, I'm going to try to do the double click trick. Double click, shift, double click, shift, double click, and on and on. Another way of selecting these edges right here is that you can select one group right here like this, and then you can go to select contiguous edge. And what that's going to do is going to look at the edge loop and select all your edges. Now these edges control these guys right here. So if I was to scale, hit R for scale, and use this plane right here. Remember, we're using the plane right here, right? Which means that we're going to scale on Y and X, but not on Z. So I can do it from the front view. And as you can see, I can, let me make that gizmo bigger so I can middle mouse, and now I can perfectly match my edge right there. I'm not too thrilled right here with my bevel right here in the middle, but again, we can always scale it up. You can double click, make sure that you get out of scale mode. You don't want to double click and scale things. So I'm going to select these edges right here, right? Make sure you don't select anything in the back. I'm going to select these edges right here. Actually, I don't need this one. I'll select it. And I can go to select contiguous edge. And again, hit R for scale. And make sure that your gizmo is small so you can see the plane first. So I'm going to select this plane like this, right? And then I'm going to make my gizmo really big, middle mouse, and then do something like this. Now when I do this, I'm noticing that this edge right here, the little guy, hit Q. This one right here, I may have to manually scale it like so. And I'm going to hit 1. I want to see how my geometry is working. All right, so I'm going over the other geometry. That is bad. So let me undo. There you go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. All right, but in display mode 1. And I'm going to try to bring it as close as I can right there. Q, let's hit 3. And, all right, better than before. Okay. So we're not right up there, but we're pretty close. All right, so let's talk about duplicating this guy in the back. The way that we do this, we go to display mode 1, And what we want to do, we want to flip this in half. So I'm going to select all these vertices and I'm going to bring them right here to the middle. I don't know where the middle is, but I'm going to eyeball it right there. Okay, let's delete history. Let me go to my custom. I'm going to delete history, freeze the transformation, and center the pivot. All right, what we want to do is I'm going to move the pivot so it's towards the back, in the center, but it's snapped to the back. So hit D. Now I'm going to move on Z while holding the V tool, and I'm going to middle mouse drag it so that it snaps to this vertex right here. Hit D. And we are going to use the mirror tool. The mirror tool is found in your polygon shelf right here, mirror geometry, but we can also find it, let's see where it is, under mesh, mirror geometry. All right, I'm going to reset this, and it's going to ask you what direction you want to go. We want to mirror this on, this is the Z axis. Now, let me hide this right here. This is our X, Y, Z coordinate. This is our Kardashian 000 coordinate. So the right will be the positive, the left will be the negative. So we want to go on the positive Z, and we want to merge with the original. So when I do that and I hit on mirror, notice that it did not go in the right direction. So maybe it was not the positive Z, maybe it was the negative Z. Let me try it, and there it is. It was the negative Z. Okay. Let me look at this. Why was it the negative Z? If I go to the view and go to default, interesting. All right, so let's test this out. I'm going to hit 3, and look at this. Now, by looking at our image planes, I've noticed something. I've noticed that it's not as fat as it should be. That's no problem. That's an easy fix, right? The way that we do this is we hit 1, 4 to wireframe, and I'm just going to select these guys right here and just manually move them. I'm going to move this guy right here, and I'm going to do a really easy trick to fix the middle. I'm going to select my middle edge, double click on it, and then delete edges. G. For some reason the edge loop is not going all the way around, and it has to do with the inside part. So what we want to do is we're trying to delete I think I just deleted the circles, so we don't want that. Right, I was deleting the inside of one of these circles right here, one of these holes. We don't want that. So to add an edge loop dead on in the middle of this object right here, what we're going to do is we're going to use our insert edge loop tool. But we're going to go to the options, and we're going to reset the tool. What we want to use multi-edge loops, but we want one. Okay, and by having the use equal multiplier selected, it's going to allow us to put one edge loop dead on in the center, and we won't have to drag this. Look at this. I'm going to click on this right here, object mode, hit Y for the last tool, and when I click on it, seems like it doesn't want to do anything. Let me go around, make sure that there are no extra edges. All right, I'm going to hit Q. I'm going to select the object. I'm going to delete the history. I'm going to select one edge like this. I'm going to go Y, and interesting, it will not let us put an edge loop. I'm going to hit 3. 1, 2, 3, and I don't know why it's not splitting this guy right here. I'm going to go back to 1. Select this edge, Y. Let me do this right here. Okay, that works. So if I go to multiple edge and I type in 1, and there it is. Okay, and notice that when I did that, I could not drag it left and right because of the use equal multiplier. It will put it dead on. I'm going to hit Q. Object mode, again, freeze transformation, delete history, checking my face normals to make sure that they're all facing the right direction. And I'm gonna go to my custom, freeze transformation, center pivot, and there you have it. Let me go to my view for this camera. I'm gonna go to the default view, hit F, and we have created a flange using simple shapes. We started with our primary shapes, which were cylinders, and then we went to our secondary shapes, which were those bevels. And now what we can do is we can go to the back and notice that our shaft is going to start right here. So how do we select something? For example, if I hit Q and select this edge, I'm just going to do that so I can see if I'm in the front or the back. Yes, I'm in the back. What I want to do is I want to delete all these edges right here, all these faces. I want to stop right here, but I want to delete all these edges right to this edge reinforcement right here, and then we're going to extrude this so we can create the shaft right here. So the way that you do this is that you make a selection, right? Then you go to create, and you go to select, convert selection to faces. Now to grow a selection, it's going to be shift period, and I'm going to grow my selection until it goes right to that edge right here and right there, and I can hit delete, and as you can see, the border edges went right there. I could have gotten one more. Let me go one more, hit delete, and now what I can do with this edge right here, I'm going to double click on this edge right here, and I'm going to extrude this. Again, the extrusions always go to one of the edges, but what I want to do is I want to go this to the center, so click on this icon right here, and I'm going to scale this on the YX plane, so I'm going to click right here. Whoops, not move, scale. And there you have it. I'm going to scale this so that it matches this shaft right here. So it's going to go right here. And I'm going to hit G to extrude again. And this time I'm going to move my extrusion right here. I'm in display mode 3, which is smooth. So I'm going to hit 1. All right, right there. All right. So the next step is to create a flange right here. I'm going to look at this edge right here and see if we need it or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bevel this first. Based on this drawing, I'm going to create this curvature right here. So let's do that. Let's select this edge right here, double click on it. Make sure that you don't have move, scale, or rotate gizmos selected. So I'm going to do undo. I'm going to hit Q. All right, always select things with the selection tool, Q. And now I'm going to create a bevel. I'm going to go to my polygons, and I'm going to go to my bevel tool, like so. And of course, I had the wrong thing selected. Double click right here, bevel. And let's make this fraction smaller. And this time, instead of a straight 45-degree bevel, I'm just going to add some segments. Okay, I'm going to start with 1, 2, and I'm going to go to my side right here. I'm going to hit Q, select the object, and type in 3. And as you can see, that bevel could be a little bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to hit 1. And I'm going to go to my inputs, my history, and for my fractions, I'm going to type in 0.35. That's too much. Let's go 0.3, right? And notice that the distance between this edge and this edge, it's smaller than this one to this one. So what I can quickly do, I can double click on this edge right here, hit Q. I'm going to bring this guy down towards the middle by hitting R for scale. This way, this edge right here is going to fence this edge loop right here and this edge loop right here. And I'm gonna move this edge right here. So I hit Q. I'm gonna move this edge right here so that it's the same distance as the edge from here to here. So somewhere right there. And now I'm gonna hit 3. So now I'm gonna get a better representation of this curve right here. And look what we have. We have a good width right here and somewhat of a good curve right here. So I'm having second thoughts on my fraction. So instead of 0.13, I'm gonna go 0.25. Hit enter, and that's much better right there. Okay. And now all I have to do is select this edge right here, hit Q, double click on this edge, and I want to extrude this. So shift right mouse button, extrude edge, and I'm going to hit W for move. Remember, it's just an edge on top of an edge. Now that I move it, I can go V for snap to point, middle mouse, drag it to one of those points at the edges. I'm going to hit Q, and there you have our flange. So this video covers the construction of the flange. What we're going to do next is we're going to talk about extruding our shaft right here. And then we're going to create the basic shapes for this box and this flange right here and these bolt protectors. And we're going to combine everything into one piece.